Now in Joppa there was a disciple whose name was Tabitha, which in Greek is Dorcas. She was devoted to good works and acts of charity. At that time she became ill and died. When they had washed her, they laid her in a room upstairs. Since Lydda was near Joppa, the disciples, who heard that Peter was there, sent 2 men to him with the request, "Please come to us without delay." So Peter got up and went with them, and when he arrived, they took him to the room upstairs. All the widows stood beside him, weeping and showing tunics and other clothing that Dorcas had made while she was with them. Peter put all of them outside, and then he knelt down and prayed. He turned to the body and said, "Tabitha, get up." Then she opened her eyes, and seeing Peter, she sat up. He gave her his hand and helped her up. Then calling the saints and widows, he showed her to be alive. This became known throughout Joppa, and many believed in the Lord. Meanwhile, he stayed in Joppa for some time with a certain Simon, a tanner.
This Sunday is Vocations Sunday. Now, I don't know what comes to your mind when you think of vocations, but when I was young, we used to pray for more vocations, by which we meant vocations to the priesthood, or possibly for people who wanted to be nuns or monks, to what you might call the religious life. Now, priests, monks and nuns are all very good, but as we all know, you can have too much of a good thing. And so these days, we tend to think of vocations in a much wider view. The English word vocation comes from a Latin word, vocare, which means to call. So a vocation is something to which God calls you to. And as I said, you might be called to the religious life or to become a priest. But you might be called to a whole lot of other things too. You might have a vocation to be a journalist or a teacher, a doctor or a builder. You might be a musician or a carer or a parent. You might be a homemaker or a poet. Each one of us is unique. No one has the unique combination of talents, interests and skills that you have. And Christians believe that God calls each one of us to use our talents and gifts and abilities in God's service and in the service of our fellow human beings and all that God has made. Perhaps you think that you're not the right sort of person to work for God. Perhaps you don't think you have the skills, character or ability. Well, maybe this will help.
Elijah was depressed.
Jacob was a trickster.
Jonah ran away when God called him.
Thomas doubted Jesus.
Peter denied Jesus.
Mary and Joseph came from the wrong place.
Chapter 8 of the Acts of the Apostles casts doubt on how fit Mary Magdalene was to be a disciple of Jesus, and also tells us that Joanna, who supported Jesus, was the wife of Herod's steward. I hope you can see that none of these people might have passed an interview about a vocation, but in fact, maybe they would have done, because they all had a unique part to play in God's plan for the world. So the question is, what's your vocation? What's God calling you to be and calling you to do?